Good afternoon. My name is Portia Morel, and I also have Joni on the call. We are both PD specialists going over one of our back to school webinar series called Tools to Track Student Progress on CodeHS Pro. And so we welcome you today. We'll go over a couple of tools and feel free if you have any questions to drop them in the chat. Joni will be watching the chat as well as dropping some links that you can go ahead and click on and interact with while I go over various topics. So let's get started. So first off, we want to make sure that you are signed up for CodeHS. And if you have not joined us before, you want to go ahead and click that link that Joni just dropped into the chat in order to sign up. It will ask you a couple of questions to get started. But once you're in CodeHS with an account, you can interact with the different features. For pro features, we're assuming that you have a pro account, so some things might not be accessible to you right away. All right, so here are today's goals as well as access to the slides. If you go to codehs.com/top_progress or simply click the link that Joni just dropped into the chat, you will have access to the same slides that I'm going over. And here are our goals for today. Today we will learn how to configure settings to control the flow of the course and its data. We'll also learn how to analyze progress and give feedback, understand how to read progress tracking tools, and explore additional activity tracking features. Hello. Welcome to our webinar. All right, so as I go through the slides, I'm actually going to jump between my demo section so that I can actually show you what these look like in the actual platform versus just looking at it on a slide. And so if you would like to follow along with us, you can do this on your own sections or create a test section. So the first thing I want to talk about is configurations. And I actually, as a teacher, like to go over and view progress by just simply looking at the gradebook. But there are a lot of activities in the course. And so I actually recommend that you configure your gradebook to look at the things that actually matter to you as a teacher. So we'll go over how to do that. I will switch over. In my section, my class section, in order to find the gradebook, you'll make sure you're in your section and then go at the top and click gradebook. Just waiting for this to load. And if your gradebook has loaded, you will see a button that will appear next to the word export that says configure. So if you click on configure your gradebook or the configure button, this is where you can set what you would like to see. By default, these are all actually checked. I had mine unchecked because there are some things that I don't really care to see or include in my gradebook, but this is where you can control what you want to see in your gradebook. So I know that the students will look through the videos and go through the slides. I know that they'll also look at the examples, but for me, that doesn't really help me track their progress. I want to see if they're working on exercise, like how well they're doing on exercises, challenges, and quizzes. So I would actually keep those checked and uncheck things that don't help me figure out the progress of the student. You have other settings as well that you can display. And you can also change the grade calculations in the gradebook configurations. Once you've made your changes, you do want to make sure that you press save. If you do not press save, this does not update. And once you press save, the gradebook will reload to view and match up the gradebook configurations that you set for the students. And once that is available, then you can actually see those particular assignments only and figure out what is going on with your students based off of those gradebook configurations. Don't forget, if you have any questions, go ahead and just drop them into the chat and Joni and I will get back to you about them. So that's gradebook configuration. The other thing that you can do to control your progress is using your pacing options, and those are your under your course settings. You have access controls, due dates, and schedule and setting up schedules. And so you can do that by going to course settings, which is next to gradebook, and change up your access controls. I am actually going to jump to the third option, which is due date plus access controls. When you click on that, what you'll have is the access to control what is available for your students. And you can also lock and schedule things to be available. By default, when you add any course to, when you add a section to any course and students are added to the course, everything, all the modules and lessons are available to them right away. So as a teacher, you can go ahead and go to your course settings, due date plus access controls, and actually hide or lock or schedule different activities so that the students can't just advance super fast. So the way that you do that is once you go into this view, you'll see all of these modules that you have for your course. You can click on a module and it will also show you the lessons. And if you click on a lesson, it will also show you all of the activities. And you can decide if these are assigned currently or if they're not assigned by toggling it to no. And you can do that on the module level, the lesson level, or the activity level. Now, I do want to note that if you do turn this off and you say no, that means that you can see it as a teacher, but the students cannot see it, and that you have to manually come back in and turn it back on in order for your students to see it. I will show you some other ways you can do this. Let's say you want the students to know that it's there, but not have access to it quite yet. That's when you change up your access controls. So you can change this from being available to either locked or scheduled. I'll explain the difference between the two. Locked means that students can see the activity, module, or lesson, but they cannot interact with it. They cannot click on it. Scheduled means that it is available, but it's locked until the scheduled date has started. So if I set this to scheduled and select a start time or date, this means that the students will not be able to interact with this module until this start date, and then it'll unlock for the students. So this is how you can control the pacing for your students, just in case if they're moving too fast or if you don't want to give them access to certain things right away. All right. We also have grading settings. And so this is one thing that I like to actually do, is to push specific activities to be manually graded by the teacher. By default, most courses have auto graders attached to them. And so they don't necessarily go push directly to the teachers. And so the students will just get feedback from the auto grader saying that they've passed the test and they can submit and continue on. But if there are specific activities or any new activities that you've added to your lessons that you want to have not automatically graded, but also reviewed by the teacher, you can go into your grading settings and set those specific activities to teacher. So we'll go over how to do that. All the way back at the top, we will go back under course settings and then click grade settings, which is right under due date plus access controls. So we'll click on grading settings. And as you can see, all of my modules, except for a few, have the module set to auto. So I can go into the module, into the lesson, and all the way down to the activities and toggle those specific activities to be pushed to the teacher to grade. And I will show you where this goes. once you've decided which activities you would like for you as a teacher to grade, we'll switch over to show how those lessons get pushed to you. So you can do that on a lesson level, an activity level, or a module level, like I've mentioned before. But obviously, there's a lot to grade, so maybe you decide that you only want a couple of lessons to be graded or pushed to the teacher. All right, so what happens when you do that? Well, what happens is when your students complete that challenge. So for example, I'm looking at the Carol challenges to be graded by the teacher. The students will still have those auto graders attached, but the difference is the progress icon and status. By default, if the student has passed the auto graders and can submit and continue, the finalized symbol or teal color will appear. But when it's teacher graded, instead of it being teal, it just becomes submitted and it's green. And the teacher has to go in and finalize the submission. And so that's where your job comes in. So that gets pushed to code review. So once a student turns in fetch or racing Carol, or any of the things that I've tagged as teacher, it gets pushed to the code review section. And so that's what we will go over next. All right, so let's talk about code review. You can get to the code review dashboard in two ways. You can click on code review on the left side, which I prefer, and you can also click on review at the top next to Gradebook, which is a second way to get there. When we go to the code review, what we're looking at are all of the submissions that the student has completed that we've toggled as teacher. So anything that is toggled as a teacher will manually get pushed here. And so you'll see the name of the student, you'll see the name of the assignment and when they turned it in. And there will be some buttons where you can just simply click on to give them full credit, or you can look at them individually and give them full credit or give them feedback, or we can do this thing called fast grade. And I'm going to demo this for you. So in code review, I have all of my student submissions. I currently have 33, and I can tell that right here. I can also tell which problems are getting pushed here and which problems have that teacher toggle by just reading this little statement that's here. It says problems currently sent to your queue. And these are the list of all of the problems and more. And they also give you a direct link to go back to that grade setting to toggle auto and teacher settings right there. So I can click on any of these activities, and this will take me to that student's exercise, and I can go on the grade tab and grade it this way. I can finalize, mark it as needs work, give 0, give full credit, give feedback, and I can also do canned responses in one place. But if you have a lot of submissions like I do, I have 33, that might take a while. So we also have the fast grade option. And so fast grade is what you think of is it's getting through your queue much faster. So I'm going to click on fast grade so you can see what it looks like. And what fast grade will do is it still shows you the same information that you would have gotten from looking at the student individually, but in a different way. So this is still the student's code, like we looked at it individually. This is still the grading tab, like we saw individually, but we also now have the solution code to just take a quick glance to match. And we have these other tools that we can click on, such as the play button, to just simply, if we want to visually see what the student did, we can actually press that run button and run the student's code here. And the cool thing about fast grade is it's a lot faster. So I can award full credit, finalize. And once I finalize, this queue up here will tell me how many more I need to grade. So I just graded 2. I have 31 remaining. And once I get to the end, then I've completed all of my grades. We can also filter and do ordering by. So you can also filter by the section or when they submitted. You can order by the first and last name or the first or last submission as well. You can also skip through. So let's say you need to come back to that student. You can press the little skip button and it will skip that student and go to the next student. You can also go back to that individual view by clicking on the little pop-out button here, and that will take you back to the individual view as well. Please let me know if there are any questions. So that was FastGrade. Like I mentioned before, you can still do individual grading as well. And we're going to transition into, as you're looking at a student's individual code, what are some other things that you can do to help figure out their process, their progress? So one thing that we have in the student's code is the code history. So you can look at the student's history of building up their code. You can see how long it takes for them. You can see each snapshot of each time it was saved, and you can actually jump back to different snapshots as well if a student has messed up their code. So I will briefly show you what that looks like. I am in Mason Brown, and what I would do is click on More, and I would click on History. And once I click on More in History, I would see all of the Mason's history in the code. Right now, this is a demo section, so it's not a real student. So some things don't really show you that well, but there is a picture that I showed here, and this would show the list of all of the timestamps of the student and if there are some changes made by the teacher, which we'll also talk about. So this is something new. This happened, became available in the summer. We can now edit students' code. As a teacher, you can push new updates, you can write comments, you can fix code if you want to, or you can help them scaffold. And so to do that, when you're in a student's code, I'm going to actually jump to a different example. And I'm jumping to a different example because it does not work in Carol, but it does work on all our other languages. So I jumped to a JavaScript exercise and I'm going to go to more. Let's see if there's some history. Nope. And I am wanting to help this student get through this code. So I want to go ahead and add some comments. Make the rectangle first. And then I want them to make the 3 circles. And whatever other things you want to do. So in order to push this update to a student, you will press the save button just as if you were the student, but you're not. Press save. And this new pop-up will appear where you get to decide if you want to revert back to the student's original code or to push the update that you just wrote in their code. So if I press push, it will make sure that you want to confirm that because it will overwrite the change. Once I push it, the student, when they open up this code, will now see those updates as well. And it also is connected to the history. So this history gets recorded as a log and I can restore from that location, or I can reset the code or jump back to a student's previous code in the history log as well. Okay. Now we'll go into more progress monitoring, specifically the progress button, and we'll break down some of those things as well. So to find the progress tracking options, you have 2 ways. You can click on progress on the left side under Gradebook, or you can click on progress next to assignments and review. And so there are 5 different views of progress. You can review the assignment on the assignment level, the lesson level, the module level, and then we have quiz scores and time tracking. So let's take a look at those. So I need to go back to my section. And I'll hover over progress. So assignment, lesson, and module are pretty similar. Assignment is the most granular. So let's just take a look at that. And so this will show you the key that it's the same key for everything. Teal means finalized, and the pink and maroon means that you've tagged an assignment to be reviewed. And if the student has submitted a review, then it would be maroon. And then we have green, which means that the student has submitted the assignment, but the teacher has to grade it. Yellow means that it's been open, but not submitted. And gray, if you ever see grays and you're expecting the students to have work done, that is another flag of knowing that the student is behind on a lesson or two. So grays are a flag. If you're expecting the students to have completed 1.3, for example, and you've noticed that there are 2 grays for 2 students for one of the lessons, that's one way that you can tell that they have not completed that progress. Yellow also kind of gives it away because there's no guarantee that the students have actually done any work in the lesson, but they've clicked it and opened it. We also have the test scores, the quiz scores, and time tracking. Quiz scores are helpful because what they do is give you an overview if the students are understanding the check for understandings after the video / slides. So if they're not understanding that concept, you can go ahead and backtrack or make some extra scaffolding material. And you can view this in heat map, percent, and raw score. And you can export all of these data points. Time tracking is also helpful. This helps me understand how long does it take for students to complete an exercise. And if they are going too fast or too slow, that's when I know I need to make adjustments. If they're going too fast, if they're taking 0 seconds to complete an assignment, then that's something that I would want to investigate because is that humanly possible? And so we have the time tracking view. And we also have some extra things that you can also look at. It's called activity trackers, and these are located in the toolbox. Now, I don't know how many of you have actually dived into the toolbox, but there are a whole bunch of other resources in there. So let's take a look at that. What I'm looking for is under data tracking. And so there's this attendance option, login history, activity map, but the ones that I want to highlight are daily activity feed and assignment feed. But I do like this data tracking for progress. So we are going to go up here and click on Toolbox and look at the data tracking section. And so let's take a look at daily activity feed. And this will show the activity feed for any of the students that you want to see if they were working and what they worked on. And you can also change the date to a prior date. So I like this view. As well as we're jumping to the assignment feed. And this is just the feed of all the assignments that have happened in the last whatever time, like in the most recent activities that have been completed or changed. So it even has my own logs in here too. So I like these 2 views. I also like login history and attendance. What that really tells me is whether or not students are active, but I actually like weekly attendance versus like a day attendance. So I would click on weekly instead. And this would show me if students have logged in on what days. And you can also export this data as well. So there's a lot of data things that you can play with that I think are more than just the progress tracking that you can also use to see if students are engaged. So we are about 5 minutes We have about 5 minutes left. I'm wondering if there are any questions. Okay. Joni, I'm curious, do you have any other things? I know I tried to like pick all the things for progress.
No, I think that those are all great. It's just, it's always just a matter of there's so much data to track with students
Mhm.
and, tracking attendance, tracking how much time they're spending, tracking their grades. There's so much data there. It's just a matter of being able to determine what you're wanting to track for their progress. What does progress mean to you? And so I think that all the tools that you suggested today are awesome tools to be able to use depending on how you do want to track your progress. So yeah, it's all good.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for attending our webinar. And we look forward to seeing you attend a few others. Here are a couple of our webinars that are left. We have blended learning, we have integrating coding across subjects, as well as cheat detection and prevention suites in October. So you can go ahead and sign up for more webinars by going to codehs.com/webinars, or you can click on the link in the chat. And you can also learn more and visit other things such as the Facebook group, the Slack channel, the micro credentials, become a certified educator. There's so many things that you can do with CodeHS. And Joni has put those links in the chat. Or you can also, if you're looking to learn more about CodeHS, you can also go to codehs.com, learn more. And we thank you for attending this webinar.